Hi, this is Janine Rusan. Thank you for viewing my podcast, Own Your Own Authentic Power. It's been many months since my last podcast. I'm back just in time for my 65th birthday, which I celebrated in September. And while it's been several months, all things do follow divine timing. So this podcast I'm calling Radiance. Since the start of 2024, I kept thinking that I would get a podcast done, and then another week would go by, and then a month, and then another month. I've heard people say that the year 2024 has gone quickly to them. Well, not for me. I truly feel like this year moved one day at a time, and yet it's been in divine order, and I won't complain. That doesn't mean it felt like an easy year. In fact, I could describe it in some ways as a tough year. That's not a complaint, just a statement of factual feelings. But I'm here now, having reached the conclusion of 65 years on this earth, and very, very glad for it. The meditation that I did on the morning that I wrote this podcast was by Bracy Armin Wright. It was calming and mindful to put me on the right path to assess the past 12 months and prepare for the next 12 months. Bracy talked about the flow of energy that supports us, and that all of our manifested experiences, whether perceived wins or failures, are ultimately for our highest good. I know that to be true in my own life, and I have witnessed it to be true in the lives of many others. When we rid ourselves of the fears of not being good enough, then we can accept the divine order, and we're open to the radiance that is present. He said by accepting the divine order, the less we feel the need to push against the current that is divine timing. So as I reach this major milestone of turning 65, I am feeling radiant. I believe that all that is for me is coming to me. I know that the greatest good is here now, and more is to come. It will come when it's time for it to come. And I will remind myself to not be disappointed or discouraged when the timing I expected isn't met, because there is indeed divine timing. Life is really meant to be enjoyed. I have heard before that many of our struggles come from not being in the present, not accepting the divine timing, the divine order, but rather having expectations of what we think is supposed to be happening, or looking back at the past. Either we are wishing for what we want to be or regretting what happened. If instead of sitting our minds and our thoughts in the past or in the future, we accept that there is divine timing for everything that occurs in our life, we could be calmer and accept the flow. We can see the radiance of the present moment. Years ago, I saw a funny saying that if I knew how much fun being a grandparent would be, I would have skipped being a parent and just become a grandparent. Well, of course, that's not logical and not possible in the divine order. Being a parent has its rewards. And yes, being a parent has its challenges too. As a parent, and even as an aunt or an uncle or a godparent. We grow with the experience, and we grow with experience. Now, there's some nonsense talk going on in the country as I write this from one political campaign, that if you didn't give birth to a person, then you don't have worth. Well, that's not true at all. Any person can add value to the upbringing of a child, a teenager, or a young adult when you choose to be involved, to be engaged, to care, to take time to let that person know they matter to you. A biological connection isn't required. A caring connection is what will leave an imprint on that person's life. So whenever you are in a position to help a young person grow up to be a positive, smiling, productive human being, do it. Go for it. And don't let anyone constrain you or define your capability to do so. Divine timing will put that young person in your path for a reason. I can see other examples in current day life of divine timing. Now, this next example is provided not to be political, but simply to illustrate divine timing. Take it for how I intended, or not. That's up to you. In August of 2019, I attended an event in Durham, North Carolina, where the keynote speaker was Kamala Harris. At the time, she was a sitting U.S. Senator, and she was a candidate for President of the United States. I had a feeling, call it an instinct, that she would not at that time finish that race for president in 2019, but that her candidacy would result in her being vice president. Now, I don't know if anyone else was thinking that in August of 2019, but I swear to you that this thought came into my mind. That's a pretty unbelievable thought, right? To have in August of 2019. But sure enough, the following August of 2020, Joe Biden, then the Democrat nominee for president, did in fact ask Kamala Harris to be his vice president on the Democratic ticket for the 2020 election. And I will say to you again that when Kamala Harris was inaugurated in January 2021, I believed from the depths of my soul that she would become our first woman president. Now, if you watch Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC, he will tell you that he had that same feeling. He predicted that same thing when he first met her as she ran for Attorney General in California in 2010. Surprisingly, the Republican guru operative Karl Rove also thought that she would or could be president one day. When he also saw her in 2010, he tried desperately to keep her from winning that Attorney General election in California. And he said if she won that election in 2010, she would be unstoppable and would eventually run for president and likely at some point become president. That's pretty interesting, right? That was 2010. So I think we're talking about divine order. Now I'm going to take you back even further to some statements that President Gerald Ford made in 1989 about how our country would get its first woman president. Now, this is a verifiable true statement. You can fact check me on this. President Ford was in front of some school children in Iowa in 1989, and a girl asked him if he thought the country would ever get a woman as president. His response was, "Well, I hope we do have a young lady become president of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president, and the woman and the man will win. So we'll end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die and the woman will become president." Now, essentially in 2024, we're in a little bit of a similar situation. Joe Biden had a woman as his VP, and then after starting a re-election campaign, he decided to step aside and no longer run for president, and he endorsed his vice president, a woman. If she wins, this is this not normal situation that President Ford somewhat described. I think we're following some divine timing here, some divine order. Certainly no one predicted this 6 months ago. It wasn't even predicted 3 months ago. When something is meant for you, it will happen in divine timing. So even when things look absolutely unthinkable or absurd, divine order is happening. It's always occurring. Because that is the case, here's what I say. Thank all of the moments that show up in your life. Whether you think something that is happening to you is good or bad, everything coming to you serves a purpose. Maya Angelou gave the advice to not ask why something is happening, but rather, what can I learn from what is happening to me? There is always something to be learned. I've said to my daughters and son and other people around me, even when something seems terrible that happened to you, bless the experience. It will serve you. God and the universe put people and situations in your life for a reason. It just may not be obvious at the time. For each of us, the task is to figure out how to go forward from those situations and people. Build on it and improve or change or carry them with you. We always have choices. Sometimes you hear people say, "I didn't have a choice." But we always have choices. Even when we're telling ourselves we don't. We do. At 65, I am choosing radiance and to keep on learning. I am choosing to greet each day, living the next several decades with pure, radiant joy, living my life with health and the wealth of family, friends, and all that comes with knowing there is divine timing. Today, I came across a book that I've had for many years titled The Joy Diet. In the book is a section that provides 8 minimum daily requirements. And I plan to remind myself of these for the next 12 months until they become embedded in my routine. Here's what they are. Number 1, establish a context of stillness. Now, another way of thinking about this is having a moment of pause, of daily meditation. I've talked about that before. Number 2, get honest. If we aren't being honest with ourselves, we've lost before we started. Number 3, pick a pebble, any pebble. That means grab genuine desires and thoughts that come to mind, no matter how trivial or grandiose they may seem. Those pebbles are actually divine timing speaking to you. Number 4, explore until you find the true desire. If what you targeted as desire isn't accompanied by feelings of peace or openness, it isn't your core desire. So find your authentic yearning. Get quiet enough and listen to yourself to know what speaks to you. Number 5, let your desire be your intention. That means to think of yourself as someone who doesn't just want what you want, but is going to get it. Envision you already have it. If you play golf or if you watch golf, that's how golfers make a golf shot. They envision how the ball is going to land before they hit it. So you have to believe that you've already got it before you do it. Number 6, leave the beaten path. Don't assume that you will obtain the object of your desires through normal means. Keep your mind open to unorthodox solutions. Number 7, ask, then what? Sometimes we get so focused on the goal, on the race, that we don't know what to do after we get it. It's like the dog catching the car and then not having a clue what to do next. Will your life be just as satisfying once you've achieved whatever you set as your goal? If getting the goal is the pinnacle, then maybe it wasn't the right goal. But if what happens after you achieve the goal is just as satisfying, then okay. Okay. Don't just go for the prize. Ensure the prize gives you peace. And number 8, believe that you can form your life around the fulfillment of your desires. Tell yourself that getting what your heart desires is possible, and truly believe it. Believe that you are worth having it. How many people do you know that reach retirement and aren't happy? Or that reach a goal and they aren't happy? They aren't satisfied. They don't know what to do with themselves. When I retired, I didn't look back on my career with dissatisfaction or regret. Not a bit. It's been 9 years. I felt deep satisfaction with my career and now with my retirement. All has been in divine order. Even if it wasn't what I thought it would be 15 years before. So as I close out this podcast and celebrate turning 65, I feel radiant. I look for the lovely in life. I accept the divine timing of life and the life God is providing for me. Our eldest daughter gave me a set of mindfulness cards a couple years ago. Each card has notes on them with simple practices for everyday life. One that I pulled out recently is captioned, "Look for the lovely." It reads, "The way we look affects what we see, and what we see affects how we feel. By intentionally looking for and tuning into the moments of loveliness, generosity, and kindness throughout your day, you can nudge your mood and overall perspective into the positive. That's how I will radiate into being 65, looking for the lovely. Thank you for listening. Always own your own power, and you will win in all ways.